Yeah, David, thank you very much indeed. Not long now until kick-off here between Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool, but as you mentioned, the big team news from Old Trafford is that Marcus Rashford is not involved again at all. Gary, Neville, I'm guessing it's not a surprise, but what is your reaction to it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not really big team news anymore. It's something of the norm, a pattern now developed over the last week. It was a surprise last weekend. But yeah, I think obviously now is getting to a point whereby you leave him out 3 games on the bounce. Something really is obviously going wrong or has gone wrong, and it's not looking great for both Marcus's future at the club and for Manchester United keeping him either. I suspect it's getting to that point in the journey where it looks like it's a sort of inevitable ending.
Do you feel the inevitability could actually happen in January, and in what form?
If you said to me 7 or 8 days ago, I said absolutely no chance. As I stand there today now, I think it's, yeah, one thing in the past, even with players at United or any big club, when it's getting to the point whereby you're talking to me about this every single week, and it's a distraction for the manager, and he becomes the focal point of the press conference, I think it does become obvious that then he probably has to leave, and that the club want him to leave, and it'll probably work for both parties. I mean, there are good examples as well of players who've struggled at United. Jadon Sancho's gone to Chelsea, he's doing better. Scott McTominay wasn't struggling at United, but he's left to go to Napoli, he's doing well. So Marcus might think it's the right thing for him as well.
Just one more on this before I talk about the game that you're at. You talk about the manager. How do you feel he's handled it?
Something has to change at Manchester United, or, you know, for 10 years we've been watching a lot of the same players over the last 4 or 5 years deliver the same results. We've talked about culture a number of times. If there are players that aren't quite fitting in for one reason or another, if they've not got good enough quality, they have to be let go. Ruben Amorim knows now 5 managers before him have fallen, and some of those managers have shown faith in these same players. So I think it's a case of he's got to protect himself and do the right thing for the club and himself.
Gary, let's get to this game. Big game. Tottenham against Liverpool. It feels quite big now for Liverpool, this one, given that they've drawn their previous 2, and Tottenham can give them a few problems, can't they?
They can. I mean, I was here on Thursday evening watching the Manchester United game against Tottenham, and Tottenham obviously blew Manchester United away for 15 minutes in the second half, a 3-0 up, but they're never safe in the game. And with Liverpool's forward line, Tottenham's problems with injuries in defence, I can actually only see one outcome today. I know that sounds really sort of negative because I love coming to this stadium, I actually love watching Tottenham play, but I think Liverpool is a big game for them. Obviously, they're in a great position in the league. Arne Slot's done a great job, but I do see them getting over the line here today.
Ange Postecoglou is unapologetic about Tottenham's style, about their approach. It's who we are, mate, seems to be the buzz phrase with him these days. Should he be given a bit of credit for that as well, though, for sticking to that?
I don't think he should apologise for his style. I mean, to be fair, I came here for 4 or 5 years. It was like a drain watching Tottenham play. It was awful. They may have got better results at times and finished higher up the league, but I have to say it wasn't pleasant to watch. The football here, when I get Tottenham now, when I get my games given by the Sky producer at the sort of, you know, a couple of months before, I enjoy it when I get given Tottenham games because I know we're going to see a fantastic game of football, and that's not patronising them. They've scored the 2nd most goals in the league. They've got the joint third best defensive record. They've won more games than any other team by 3 goals. They have got 10 injuries as well. They've got a mountain of injuries. If they had the players fit, they'd be right up there, Tottenham, this season. So, you know, other clubs, I think also, their managers seem to whinge when they get 1 or 2 players injured. Ange doesn't seem to make that much of a fuss about his injury problems. He's got horrific ones, particularly at the back. Look, they can manage games better. They can control games better. I'm sure that he was pulling his hair out the other night. But if your goalkeeper goes and makes 2 mistakes like that with the ball at his feet, I don't really know what you want to... I mean, I don't really know what he can do. I mean, what's he changing there? You know what I mean? They are just genuine mistakes. So, yeah, there are control and management issues in games which definitely can be a lot better. They're giving up goals against Chelsea and against Brighton. They're bad defeats to give away. But it'll be a good game, I know that. But I think that Liverpool will just have too much firepower for them in the end. Yeah,
you touched on it before. The goalkeeper at Tottenham and that central defensive partnership as well, clearly not the first choice. Is that where Liverpool can exploit?
Oh, absolutely, and they will exploit it, no doubt. Manchester United was so poor going forward in the first half the other night. Even in the second half, they couldn't really create chances of their own, goal-scoring chances of their own. They obviously scored goals, but only through the mistakes of Tottenham. But Liverpool are a different kettle of fish. They've got some brutal finishers. They've got some fantastic players up front, great innovation, creativity. They will cause problems. And look, I've been there myself where you've had 3 or 4 centre-backs out and you play 2 makeshift centre-backs. It is not easy. It is not easy.
Just finally, Gary, as we stand now, Liverpool top of the league, of course. They could be second by the time they kick off. But
Yeah.
overall, title race-wise, do you still put them as clear favourites for this?
Well, they are clear favourites. I've stuck with Arsenal winning it at this moment in time. I think they'll go on a run. I think Liverpool are a difficult patch. But to be honest with you, the more it goes on, the more you see Liverpool's strength. They've got good experience. In this year, it's a league that is just very different. It's very different than the years gone by. So it's there to win. And Liverpool are in with a great chance.
I guess I've gotten used to this Manchester United. It's just, this is a bad team. We've been saying this about Manchester United consistently. This is not just a rebuild. This is going to take a total demolition of the squad from Ruben Amorim.
Where did this game change today, LME? Where was it won and lost? Because Bruno Fernandes was sent off for a second yellow card, and it was a first half that meandered along. Was it the second half? What happened today?
Yeah, I think the sending off clearly impacted the game. I mean, fair credit to Wolves. Vitor Pereira, as you began in your introduction, what he's done in these two matches. But you have to focus on the impacted sending off of Bruno Fernandes. Ruben Amorim wouldn't even look at him as he walked off. I mean, it was a really stupid way to be sent off, especially in that second yellow, because it was the beginning of the second half. There was no need to lunge and, inadvertently or directly stamp on somebody's foot, because he knows he was in a booking. You needed to just begin the second half, especially away from home, at least composed. And then once you have 10 men, the blueprint goes out the window, because now you really have to rely on what you have in front of you against, a Wolves side who, whether you want to call it a manager bounce or not, are determined, focused. I like what Vitor Pereira said in his press conference once joining, when he said he wants to just put all his players in the right places, guide them like a GPS, give them confidence. And that's kind of what you're seeing. And when you have 10 men, obviously the obstacle is going to be that much harder. So Bruno Fernandes' sending off became just a bigger reason for Wolves to keep on pushing. And the factor as well is like, look, there's some players here on this Wolves side, by the way, that I think Vitor Pereira, it's a good thing he's Portuguese and knows how to speak to both Portuguese and Brazilian stars, because, there were some good performances here. Andre in the center midfield, their number 7, was wonderful. Was only 23 years old. Cunha, if they can keep him, because I bet you there's going to be some teams looking around in January, but if they can keep him, then it's going to be massive. Now, this is the last thing that I'll say before you turn it to our friend Janusz here. The Olímpico from Cunha, obviously a great Olímpico, but this is now the second time in a row United are conceding from an Olímpico. And today, I blame it on Andre Onana, because he's being sandwiched by two players. They're not fouling him. They're just standing there, right? So you need to do more with your footwork. You need to be more of a voice in there, because when you defend a corner, the number one voice you should hear is the goalkeeper. And I didn't hear anything but complaining from Onana. And then what happens? Cunha scores, and boom, there you have it. So Fernandes' red card was a big impact in the second half, but so many other errors that we have seen familiar with Manchester United continue to happen. So fair play to Wolves. You took care of it.
Yeah, you've touched upon the two main incidents in the game, probably the two only incidents in the game up until the second goal was scored in stoppage time. Because if we had to do a half-time report on that, it would have been 30 seconds long. It would have been a high, bye, see you later. So in the second half, he's already been booked after 18 minutes, Bruno Fernandes. Does this kind of bigger picture signal a lack of leadership, a lack of discipline at the football club, Janusz? Because that's a reckless challenge, and a reckless challenge by the letter of the law. Careless is a foul, reckless is a yellow, using excessive force / serious foul play is a red. That's a reckless challenge. It's needless. He knows he's already on a yellow. What does that tell us about him? What does it tell us about his mentality that he did this? And what does it tell us as a bigger picture about Manchester United as a whole, and the fact that this is their captain who's doing this and knowing pretty well that it's probably going to be a second yellow and he's going to leave his team with 10 men?
I think this is just a combination, not to excuse him, because, I mean, that's not the first time, right? I mean, this is his third red card this season. Third.
Yeah.
Competitions, right? So it's not just that, right? He is the captain. He needs to know better. And, we can go on and on. He knows he's got a yellow. I get that. It's a level of frustration. He frustrates all of us, right? Because his body language under different managers has not always been great. People have come out saying that he probably shouldn't be a captain. Maybe he's not, but I'll tell you this. He is still, for me, their best player, right? But the frustration of playing for such a big club like Manchester United that has been a mess for such a long time was for everyone to see. And even here, as I said, I still think that appointing Ruben Amorim was a good thing. I do see a different mindset when you rebuild from such depths of disparity. I guess it's going to take time. There's no questions about that. Looking at the squad, as I've said, a demolition needed here. I still think Bruno Fernandes is by far the best player. If you give him players to play with, he's going to be absolutely fine. Just take a look at the games that he plays for Portugal. So should he have done better? Absolutely. Should we have an early chat about Ruben Amorim? Absolutely. Because you know what? Even though it's such a short time, this is Manchester United, and you have to, I think you have to maintain a certain standard, right? Last two games, I mean, how can you lose to Bournemouth at home 3-0, right? How can you go to see new manager Wolves who are in relegation zone and you pretty much easily lose the game? That second goal, okay, very late. You're pushing for equalizer, but still, I mean, if he's going to pick a bone with Rashford and Garnacho, look at the way Garnacho loses that ball, right? I'm sure that's going to leave a mental note. So yes and yes and yes to everything you guys said.
Being a best player, I don't think anyone can argue with that. But he'll not be their best player against Newcastle because you can't score from free kicks or whatever when you're suspended. That's the problem here, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And I get what Janusz is saying, but LME, it's not like this is something that hasn't happened before. And I know one of them, I think, was eventually overturned. One of the red cards deemed that it was a wrong decision. But he does have a history here. The malaise that has set in at the football club, and this isn't just picking on Bruno Fernandes, okay? This is the whole football club in general. How do you fix something like this? How do you have that mentality between hunger and just sheer stupidity when you go into a challenge knowing that you're on a yellow card here? Because he's a brilliant player. I love watching him, and neutrals love watching him as well. He can do anything with the football, but not when he's suspended. Is it just frustration, or is it more than that, LME?
No, it's more than that. There is a proverbial disease going around the culture of Manchester United. There just is. You can remove Ruben Amorim and put somebody else in, and the same issues will begin. And this is why the three of us have discussed this, that, yes, we can talk about the manager, but this whole squad needs to be relooked at. And because overall, the scouting of the personnel that you need to play for this club is now very, not just ordinary, but just there's this lack of, accountability. Ruben Amorim says no more, and we saluted when Marcus Rashford, is not showing enough. But then we see this happening from Bruno Fernandes. Amorim can't even look at him, and it's not the first installment. So I'm not even putting the blame on Amorim just yet. I'm just focusing on the fact that there is something much deeper here. Janusz said this is Manchester United, to the point where we'll have to remember the glorious moments of the past. But this is Manchester United, a very ordinary club who are closer to the relegation zone than they are to the top four. This is their reality. So, and also, what do you say when you hire a sporting director and then he leaves 5 or 6 months right after? There's so many things about this club that need fixing that it's going to take a long time. I was very optimistic, too optimistic in my predictions of the first 11 matches Amorim, because I really thought that somebody like him would try and change it. But now I'm really realizing with my very open eyes here, more so than ever before, this club seriously needs a cultural change, and that takes longer than a few months or even.
Harry Maguire's comments following Manchester United's disappointing 2-0 defeat to Wolves should send alarm bells ringing for Ruben Amorim. Despite losing the match, Maguire insisted that the team was not troubled by Wolves, who entered the game sitting in the relegation zone with just 3 wins from 17 league matches. Such a mindset could indicate deeper issues within the squad. While it's true that Wolves did not dominate the match and goalkeeper Andre Onana was not heavily tested, the reality is that United looked utterly vulnerable. You can't excuse a loss against a team struggling to find form. Maguire, as one of the senior members of the squad, took on post-match media duties, but his reflections were more puzzling than insightful. "We needed to improve going into the second half," he stated. the red card changed the game. It's tough to play with 10 men in the Premier League. If we're honest, we didn't give them anything, they created nothing. Such comments are concerning. The United defence has been shaky, especially when it comes to set pieces, and dismissing the opposition's 2 goals as mere flukes does little to address the fundamental issues at hand. The fact that Wolves only created 2 goals doesn't negate the reality that those goals were decisive. Maguire's insistence that Wolves failed to generate meaningful chances is particularly alarming for Amorim. If United can leave a match believing they underperformed while still conceding 2 goals, it raises questions about their ability to halt their downward spiral. It's not uncommon for players to feel hard done by after a loss, but sometimes it's essential to look in the mirror and recognise that the performance simply wasn't good enough. For a defender at Manchester United to claim that a relegation-threatened team didn't create anything is a worrying signal, and it's clear that this mentality needs to change if they hope to turn their fortunes around.